Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you back to a time when cars had more brass than brakes, engines made less horsepower than a garden trimmer, and if your car didn't catch fire once a month, you weren't driving hard enough. In 1905, folks didn't measure acceleration in seconds. They measured it in how many dogs barked before it reached the end of the street. And yet, into this chaotic, gasoline-scented infancy of American motoring rolled a peculiar little gem, the Maxwell Model L. A car so straightforward it made your horse jealous, and so mechanically sound it didn't even need to park near a repair shop. That's not my claim, that's Maxwell's. Before we pull the brass horn and start our tour, don't forget to smash that subscribe button like you're hand cranking a flat twin at 6 a.m. in February. We've got more forgotten machines, shiny oddballs, and automotive fever dreams than my neighbor Bob has conspiracy theories. The Maxwell Motor Company, yes, the same company that later morphed into Chrysler, was born in 1904 when engineer Jonathan Dixon Maxwell, fresh from Oldsmobile, teamed up with financier Benjamin Briscoe, with financial backing from none other than J.P. Morgan. They planted their mechanical dreams in a former mobile steamer factory in Tarrytown, New York, and said, "Let there be torque." The very first fruit of their labor, the Model L. Late 1904 saw a pilot batch of just 10 units. Think of them as pre-production guinea pigs. But 1905, that was the big debut. Priced at $750 United States dollars, it was aimed at the hardworking everyman, doctors, farmers, small-town barbers with big dreams. This was no rich man's toy. It was advertised as the car that keeps repair bills down, appealing to a crowd tired of walking back from the buggy repair shop. Maxwell's tagline might as well have been, "Built like a tank, priced like a donkey cart." And it worked. Around 823 units of the Model L were produced in 1905. Combined with the initial batch, the official tally is 833 units, a respectable figure for a company still dodging horse manure in the streets. Let's dive into the oily bits. The Maxwell Model L was powered by about 101 cubic inches, 1.65 liters, horizontally opposed two-cylinder engine mounted up front under a neat little hood. In 1905, that alone was revolutionary. Most cars still hid their engines like a family secret under the seats. This flat twin engine used a side-valve L-head configuration and produced a manufacturer-rated 8 horsepower. Despite its modest output, the Model L could reach about 35 miles per hour, 56 kilometers per hour. Cooling was handled by a thermosiphon system, which means no water pump. Just gravity, convection, and hope. And yet it worked. No pump meant fewer breakdowns, and Maxwell leaned into that, advertising it proudly. Fuel was delivered by a single Harrington carburetor, and while fuel economy figures are scarce, estimates range between 15 to 20 miles per gallon. The transmission was a 2-speed planetary gearbox, the same principle Ford used in the Model T later. 2 forward speeds, 1 reverse, and absolutely no way to get it wrong unless you were Timmy. And yes, shaft drive, not chains. This was a big deal. In an era of noisy, messy chain drives, Maxwell's shaft was clean, durable, and oh so modern. Suspension? Solid axles, front and rear, with semi-elliptic leaf springs. No shock absorbers, of course. You just had to embrace the bounce. Braking was handled by rear-only mechanical drum brakes. The frame started out made of oak wood clad in steel, but that idea lasted about as long as Timmy's sobriety on a fishing trip. It proved too weak, and production quickly switched to a pressed steel ladder frame. The wheelbase measured 72 inches, 6 feet or 183 centimeters, and the whole thing weighed around 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. 450 to 540 kilograms. The body was an open 2-passenger runabout, or tourabout, as Maxwell fancifully called it. There was also a delivery wagon version built on the same chassis, perfect for hauling fruit, tools, or poor life decisions. No windshield, no roof, and no doors. Everything you didn't want in winter. But hey, fewer things to rattle loose. And it had a proper steering wheel, not a tiller. That may sound minor, but in 1905, it was a bragging right. Controls were accessible, and Maxwell emphasized how easy it was to service. Every part can be reached without crawling under the car, which was useful for owners not keen on getting mud in their moustaches. As for clever bits, there were plenty. The engine and transmission were cast as one aluminium unit, reducing weight and potential leaks. Aluminium was cutting-edge stuff in 1905. Add to that a naturally balanced flat twin engine, shaft drive, thermosiphon cooling, and bevel gear rear end, and you had a package that was simpler, smoother, and smarter than most cars in its price bracket. The 1905 Maxwell Model L wasn't here to win a beauty contest, it was here to survive one. Everything about the Model L's design screamed practicality first. The body was a minimalist open runabout with a single front bench seat, a tall steering column, and a dash made of, well, mostly hopes and a small plank. Windshields? Optional. Doors? Luxury. The Maxwell was meant for folks who didn't need creature comforts because the creatures were probably still pulling wagons in town. But what it had was elegance in simplicity. The rounded hood, exposed wheels, and brass lamps were typical for the time, but Maxwell's steel-clad bodywork and detachable tonneau seat option made it feel a touch more upscale than many of its wooden-bodied rivals. It was a car for the people, built with the philosophy that owning a car shouldn't require a butler or a mechanical degree, or living next door to a repair shop, as the ads proudly declared. In 1905, Maxwell wasn't the only company making noise in the entry-level car market. They were squaring off against Oldsmobile's curved dash and Cadillac's early Model E. The Olds was quirky and beloved. The Cadillac was polished and consistent, but the Maxwell Model L hit a sweet spot. Better tech than the Olds, a lower price than the Cadillac. Buyers noticed. By the end of 1905, Maxwell had built over 800 units, and by 1909, Maxwell was the third largest automaker in America, behind only Ford and Buick. This wasn't a fluke. It was a carefully targeted campaign that paid off. Maxwell aimed for the common driver who needed reliability more than status, and they delivered. Today, finding a Maxwell Model L in the wild is like spotting Bigfoot riding a penny farthing. A few examples have survived, around a dozen by most estimates, but they're treasured like ancient relics of American motoring. And Maxwell influence didn't end with the Model L. After riding the wave of early success, the company struggled post-World War I like many did, before being rescued by Walter P. Chrysler in 1921. He absorbed Maxwell into his new empire, and in 1925, Maxwell officially became Chrysler. So yes, that 1905 runabout you're looking at? It's technically Chrysler's great-grandfather. What's more, Maxwell laid foundations that bled into Nash, Willys, and eventually even Jeep. It all started with this humble, clattering, brass-lamped machine on a 6-foot wheelbase. Back in 1905, the Maxwell Model L sold for $750 United States dollars, which, when adjusted for modern inflation, comes out to around $28,000 to $30,000 United States dollars. Not pocket change, but affordable enough that it democratized automobile ownership for the everyday American. As for today's market, well, this is where it gets interesting. Publicly documented sales for Model L in recent years top out around the mid-$30,000. For example, R.M. Sotheby's sold one at Hershey in 2023 for $34,100. The Maxwell Model L is more than a funny-looking car with a top speed that a crow can beat in a strong breeze. It's a symbol of early innovation done right. It took reliable mechanics, packed them into a budget-friendly package, and dared to offer shaft drive, front engine, and steel construction before it was fashionable. Special thanks to our brave, generous, and possibly slightly reckless channel sponsors. You fine folks, fund my bad decisions and keep this channel running smoother than a flat twin on downhill coasting. May your engines always fire on the first crank, and may your neighbors never borrow your tools just for the weekend.